All right, welcome. Today we're tackling a really tough topic, but a super important one: the official rules for animal euthanasia. Now, these aren't just suggestions, they're strict regulations. They're all about making sure that if an animal's life has to end, it's done as humanely as possible. So, let's break down what that actually means. And really, that's the core question behind all of this, isn't it? How do we make sure an animal's end is humane? When it's the only option left, how do we guarantee it's done with compassion and without causing any needless suffering? Well, that's exactly what these official regulations are designed to answer. So, where do these rules come from? Right here. Everything we're going to talk about today is laid out in this document, the Department of Agriculture Administrative Order. And I want to be super clear about this. This isn't just a list of best practices. This is the law. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this in 6 parts. We'll start with the why, the basic policy of humane treatment. Then we'll get into the specifics: when euthanasia is actually allowed, who can do it, and what methods are approved. We'll also touch on some special cases and wrap up with what happens when these rules are broken. All right, first up, the policy of humane treatment. Before we dive into all the rules and procedures, we really need to get a handle on the why behind it all. What's the fundamental principle here? You know, the document doesn't waste any time. The very first section makes its purpose incredibly clear. The whole point is to protect and promote the welfare of animals. It literally says that when ending a life is unavoidable, it must be done in the most humane manner. That's not just a nice thought. It's declared state policy. And to make sure everyone's on the same page, the regulations give us a very precise definition. Euthanasia is defined as the process of inducing a humane and painless death. Those two words, humane and painless, are absolutely crucial. They set the standard for everything else that follows. But you can't just perform this procedure for any old reason. So that leads to a big question. When is it actually permitted by law? Let's take a look at the very specific legally accepted conditions. Okay, so Section 5.2 lays out 6 specific scenarios. You've got public health reasons, like if an animal has an incurable or contagious disease. Then there's the compassionate side, to end the misery of an animal that's really suffering. It also covers things like population control, authorized research, and of course, if an animal poses an immediate danger to people. And you'll notice a common thread here. For most of these, a vet certification is a must. It's not a decision made lightly. This brings us to another critical point. Who is actually allowed to do this? As you can imagine, the rules are very, very specific about this. And the main rule is pretty simple and direct. The authority to perform euthanasia belongs exclusively to a duly licensed veterinarian. That's it. This is all about ensuring the person has the right medical knowledge and technical skill to make the process as fast and painless as possible. Now, while the veterinarian is the main authority, there is one very specific exception. In certain situations, sharpshooters or police officers can use a firearm, but, and this is a big but, only if they've been given special authorization by the Bureau of Animal Industry. So you can see this is a really tightly controlled exception, not a free-for-all. Okay, so now we're getting to the real nitty-gritty of the regulations, the approved methods. This is the how. These are the specific procedures that have to be followed to meet that humane and painless standard we talked about. And there's a strict protocol here. First, it has to be performed by a competent, licensed vet. They have to choose the most humane method for the situation. It needs to be done quickly to cause the least amount of fear or distress possible. And super important, it has to be done privately, away from the public and other animals. And the final step, the vet has to physically confirm that death has occurred by checking for vital signs. What's really interesting is that the method isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Section 7 has this detailed table of which methods are acceptable for different animals. For cats and dogs, for instance, barbiturates are often preferred, but for horses or livestock, something like a penetrating captive bolt is considered acceptable. It's all about making sure the method is scientifically appropriate for that specific animal's body and physiology. The regulations also think about messy, real-world situations. I mean, what happens if an animal is badly injured or has escaped? Let's see what the rules say about these special cases. And you see that core principle of humane treatment pop up again, even in these tough spots. If an animal is so injured it can't walk, it has to be moved very carefully, or if necessary, euthanized right there to stop more suffering. And for an escaped animal, the first priority is always humane retrieval. Lethal force is only a last resort, basically if the owner is found and doesn't want the animal to be treated. It really emphasizes responsible handling above all.
So what happens if someone just ignores all of this? Well, the last part of the order is crystal clear. If you break these rules, there are serious consequences.
Yeah, this quote from Section 11 leaves no room for doubt. It says that any person who violates these provisions shall, upon conviction, by final judgment be punished. Again, these aren't just guidelines to consider. They are legally binding rules. So what does that punishment look like? Well, for one, there are fines. These can go up to 5,000 pesos. And even more seriously, violators could face imprisonment for up to 2 years. The fact that there's potential jail time really shows how seriously these animal welfare laws are meant to be taken. And that brings us to our final thought. This document gives us a really clear, solid framework. But it was written back in 2010. So it kind of leaves us with a big question, right? As our understanding of science and ethics continues to grow, are these rules, now more than a decade old, still enough to give animals the protection they truly deserve?